Hello and hello everybody, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. So today it is pissing it down with rain again, so guess who got the day off work? So here we are filming! That'll be the last time that happens though, because from Monday, aka tomorrow, in the UK all the indoor restaurants and everything open up. That'll probably be the last time I get rained out of a shift. We'll work around, but today is good because it means I can film something. Yay! So today I am doing a tag that was made like 2 years ago maybe? It was a long time ago, and that is a tag that was originally done by Rebbeca Books. I know Rebbeca Books because Kaz knows Rebbeca Books. It's a channel that I'm subscribed to, that I'm watching more and more videos of, and I wanted to do a Grishaverse themed tag because of the new Shadow and Bone TV show. I thought it would be a good time to go back and do a tag like that since I don't think I ever did one. And I happened to find this one from Rebbeca Books, so I'm very happy to do this tag in honor of the new TV show, which I'm working my way through. I'm almost at the end. And if you haven't checked out the live stream that me and Leah did over on Instagram, I will have that linked below and everything. You should go follow her on Instagram and you can check out the live show we did discussing the TV show. So let's get into this tag while we're young. The first question is Kaz Brekker, a book that you shouldn't judge by its cover. Now there was lots of ones I could go for this one because there's lots of books that I think are amazing that have terrible covers, but the epitome of this for me is the Gatekeeper series by Eva Poehler. I think that's it, I'm remembering that off the top of my head, and I loved that series back when I read it. It was a long time ago now. It's a series I really want to go back and revisit, but the covers are just, are you seeing these? They are gross, aren't they? They're just shit. There's people on the cover, there's the whole shirtless guy look going on, bad Photoshop people. They're just really ugly covers, but the actual stories, the actual books were really, really good. So definitely don't judge that book by the covers because it's not some trashy love triangle YA. I mean, it is a YA, but it's none of the other things. So it was a good fucking series, and that cover does not do it justice. I believe this series has gotten a revamp in the covers recently, which if I can find them, they'll be right next to me. So I'm glad they did get a revamp because those old covers just needed to go. Question 2, Nina Zenik, a book that made you feel empowered. Now there was a fair few I could go for this one. I was thinking of going for the obvious Hunger Games because Katniss, but I didn't want to go for the super obvious answer, so I picked a different one, and I picked Delirium by Lauren Oliver. This is one of the books on my favourite books of all time list, which you probably know. A lot of those books are going to end up on this list, sorry about it. But I ended up picking this one because Lena, the main character, definitely made me feel empowered when I read this series, and I always think back to that character and the grit and the determination and the desperation she had to fight for what was right. And I don't know, there's just something about that series, the plot and the characters, that was so raw and very empowering because the main character is just trying to fit in. She's trying to be what everyone wants, and she ends up breaking out of the societal norm and going for what she instead believes in, even when it doesn't exactly benefit her anymore. She's fighting for a thing that she doesn't even have, which was love. She was fighting for the right for other people and for society to change rather than for something she had because it was something she lost. And the fact that she was still fighting for a thing that didn't even benefit her anymore, and I think that is a lesson we could learn in today. Just because a thing doesn't directly hurt you and even may benefit you doesn't mean we shouldn't fight against it. In fact, it's even more important to fight against things that benefit you or oppress other people because they wouldn't change otherwise. So I don't know, there was something about Lena as a main character that was really empowering to me. She was just very strong and stubborn and determined to change it and to do what was right, and I just really loved that series. So that's what I thought of when I heard this question. Question number 3, Inej Ghafa? Is it Ghafa? A book with a good balance of character and plot. Now again, any of my favourite books could have been this, and a lot of books that I really, really love have this exact balance. I love the balance of the concept of the plot and the excitement and the action of the plot, but also the character development and depth of moral conflict with the characters is essential. So that balance pretty much sums up all of my favourite books. So I decided to go with Mind Jack, again, one of my favourite series, because the plot is so action driven and there's so much going on. It's such an interesting, always moving, always evolving plot that's so good, but also the characters. It really focuses on who the characters are, and basically this question was pick one of your favourite books. And this is the one I went for. The next question is Alina Starkov, a unique book unlike any you've ever read. Now there's a few different options I could have gone with this one. I ended up going with Farmland Sentience by Jenna Lawrence. This was a book I read a couple of years ago, I think now, and it was different. Even now I think it it was one of the most unusual and unique books I've ever read, in a good way, not in a bad way, in a great way. This book is like a dystopian sci-fi fantasy-esque book. It's mainly dystopian, but take everything you know about what you think a dystopian is. You know, everyone thinks the cliche dystopian, I'm burned out from dystopian, because you know how I feel about that. Take everything you think you know about dystopian and then read this, because I've read a lot of dystopians and this is nothing like I've ever read before. It is so weirdly different and creepy. I read this a long time ago, so a lot of the details are lost on me now. I really want to go back and reread it actually, but I don't want to tell you what it's about because the beginning of the book is such a shock. I don't want to ruin it. Just know it's creepy. There's trigger warnings for all sorts of shit and gross, and there's like really weird bug creatures walking around, and it's a time. The most different book, and in the genre of dystopian, if you think all dystopians are the same, then you're obviously not reading the right ones. This always proves my point. The next one is Oretzev. Oh god, I hate reading names. A book that always sticks with you. Now this one I thought about. I really thought about hard, because I could have picked, again, any of my favourite books. I could have picked any of the books that I read a long time ago that I still really like or remember. But actually I decided to go off-piste with this one a little bit. And I've picked a book I remembered from my childhood. I wasn't a big reader when I was younger, when I was a teenager. It was a no. I had a lot of learning difficulties when I was really quite young, so that heavily put me off. I remember from my childhood. I think I was about 8 or 9 when I read this book. I remember it was a book my teacher, one of my favourite teachers of all time, lent me, and it was by Michael Morpurgo, I think, and I think it was called The Giant's Necklace. Now, I've looked for this book in my adulthood, now I'm a reader, and I'm so tempted to buy it and read it because I want to know if it's as good as I remember, but then again I'm worried that it won't be because I have such a vivid memory of this story in my head, and I don't want to revisit it and it be really shit and like childish and not good, so I almost don't want to read it and keep it the mystery. But yeah, that book is The Giant's Necklace by Michael Morpurgo, and I read this, like I said, when I was about 8 or 9, and this story, the twist of this story, the realization, the creepiness of this story really got me and has haunted me in my childhood and ever since, really. And I've always remembered that book and that story. I read it once. I read it when I was 9, when reading was not my strong suit, and I still remember that story so vividly. It was all in that twist. It was all in the ending and the whole way the whole story was set up. It was such a clever, haunting story, and it stuck with me ever since. So I think that fits the question perfectly. It's not a book that I've read in my modern booktube life, so this one is going a bit off-piste and digging back in the archives of my brain, but I thought it was a good option and something I don't pick for a lot of questions, so I thought it would be a fun one to tell you about. Again, don't really want to tell you the story. It's a kid's book about a girl who is collecting shells on the beach and gets lost, and that's pretty much all I'm gonna say. I realise I haven't given you synopsises on most of these books, but then again, I talk about all my favourites all the time, and a lot of the others you'll know, so you can find out if you really want to know. The next one is The Darkling, a book with a dark plot and storyline. This one was a little tricky. I thought of a few and I was trying to think of the most dark, but also I wanted to pick a good one that I really like. I really want to get into more dark books because upon reading this question, I looked at some of the darkest books that I have and I realised they're fairly dark, but they could be a lot darker. Which, is it bad? That's something I want more of. But we won't talk about mental issues. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of dark. Like, there's mental health dark and then there's child abuse dark, you know what I mean? There's different levels. But I ended up picking with Outside by Sarah Ann Jukes. This is pretty dark. The whole setup and plot of the story is quite a sweet and wholesome plot at the same time. It's dark because you know what's happening, and that's gross. But a lot of the book is quite sweet and wholesome because she breaks out of that darkness. But it's always there, it's always a lurking. I just find the whole thing creepy. And again, trigger warnings and sensitive issues towards things involving children. Pretty dark. Not the darkest, but I thought it fit the question and it's the one I picked. The next one is Jesper Fahey. I've probably said all of these names wrong, but we're too late now. A book that people always seem to leave out. Now, this one I thought about a lot. What book do people always leave out? And then I realised I couldn't not do this. And I'm sorry in advance. So Unwind by Neil Shusterman. Hi if you're new. This is my favourite book and series of all time. Get used to it. I will mention it till the day I die. Soz. The reason I chose my favourite book, hear me out. So the Scythe trilogy is one that came out more recently from Neil Shusterman and it is a great series. Scythe blew up. Like loads of people read Scythe and loads of people love it. It's been raved about, it's been hyped. Loads of people love this trilogy and that makes my heart so happy that Shusterman is finally getting the recognition recognition he deserves. Yes, this bitch has been my favourite forever. Please climb aboard, everyone. But also at the same time, I'm like, okay, now everyone loves Scythe. Can we come on over to the Unwind fandom, please? Because everyone mentions Scythe and how much they like Scythe, but no one talks about Unwind. And I'm sorry, but Unwind is better. And yeah, I'm biased, heavily biased, because Unwind is my favourite of all time. And it's probably always going to be now. But if we all love Scythe so much, can we not just come and read Unwind? Because Scythe is amazing, right? But Unwind is better. It is amazing upon amazing. And I just want more people to realise, yeah, Neil Shusterman's good. Why don't we read this one as well? And then this fandom can grow and people on BookTube can actually talk about Unwind. Yes, please. I'm glad that Scythe blew up the way it did, but I'm also a little bit like, don't leave Unwind in the shadows, because apparently it's the underrated of the Neil Shusterman works. I know Unwind was probably really popular when it came out. It's quite an old series now, but I still don't think enough people on BookTube, I don't think I've ever heard anyone on BookTube talk about Unwind, so there we are. This one has been left out, and I will always talk about it. That's not going to change. The next one is Wylan Van Eck, a book that wasn't what it seemed at first. Again, this one I had a few ideas floating around in my brain, but I ended up choosing The Quiet at the End of the World by Lauren James. This one is definitely not what it seems. I think it's a sci-fi. I'd call it sci-fi. It's about the world and the population having diminished to an extremely small number of people, and there's only like a couple of teenagers, a girl and a boy, so you can see where that's going to head, you know, repopulating the earth and all that jazz. And the beginning of the story started off in such a different way to how it ended. The plot twist and everything, once you figure out what's all going on, the book totally merges track. The ending was totally different to how I envisioned it being in the beginning, so this book definitely wasn't what it first appeared. It seemed like a book about humanity and about community, and it kind of turned into something more ominous and technological and strange, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was a while ago since I read this one now, so I'm struggling to remember it totally. It's about two teenagers who are the last on Earth and having to fix problems. The next one is Matthias Helvar, a book that started off bad but turned out good. This one was a little bit tricky for me because books that start off bad I don't tend to like, because I find when I hate the beginning of a book, it's very hard to be redeemed. Like if you watch my January wrap up and you know about a very bad thing, when a book starts bad, it struggles to redeem itself to me. So yeah, this one was a tough one. There's not many candidates that could go with this question, but I decided to go with The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This one, again, I read a couple of years ago now. I said that about like every book, but it's true. And this one, it wasn't bad in the beginning and turned out great in the end. The reason I picked this book for this question is it started off difficult to read, and I got more used to it and more into it the further the book went along. This book is quite derisive on BookTube. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are really on the fence. It's a tough read. The thing about this book is it's very hard to read. From the perspective you are given, it's very confusing. You aren't given a lot of information. You don't know who the main character is. So there's this whole mystery about who you even are as the main character, and the POV switches from body to body. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about a party in a mansion where one of the guests is murdered and you are someone at the party who is body swapping, and you have 7 bodies at the party, so you have 7 days to figure out who the murderer is, otherwise you'll be stuck in a hell loop forever. And so you don't know who the main character is. They have forgotten their own identity and they're waking up every day in a new party guest, and they have to figure out who the murderer is at this party. So you get the POV of someone who doesn't remember who they are and is waking up in a different person every day. You living the same day over and over again from different perspectives. So it's a very convoluted, confusing read, especially when you first jump in the beginning, because you don't know who you are, and when you first start to learn it, you realise, no, that's the guest, not the main character. It's weird, and the beginning is just hard to understand and a bit grueling and a bit difficult, but the more and more you get into it, the more and more I liked that book. And I thought, although it was complex and it was a hard read to get through, it was really good. A lot of people may have been like, no, it was just too difficult to read and it wasn't fun, but I really enjoyed the mystery and almost the hardness of it, because I really felt that character's frustration of waking up in different bodies and not knowing what the hell was going on and trying to figure everything out. It was hard and confusing, but I liked that about it. I thought that thematically really worked with the story. That's the one I ended up going for this question. And the last one is Nikolai Nikolai Lantsov. A witty book. This one was way harder than I thought it would be. I mean, I read a lot of books, but I don't really think of many funny books or, you know, witty books. I can think of books I've laughed out loud at. I have laughed out loud at Unwind, but we'll leave that for another day. There are books I've laughed at, but I read a lot of books that aren't ha-ha fun. I read a lot of dystopian and fantasy and darker themes, and even the contemporaries I read are usually mental health based. So funny ha-ha isn't kind of the vibe I go for when I'm reading. And witty is a very specific type of humour. I thought about this one a lot, and I ended up going with A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, because if I remember correctly when I read this one, it was really funny and the main character is very witty, and there's a lot of like irony and self-deprecation and dry humour, and I just thought this book was really great. I absolutely loved this book. It had my whole heart. And if I remember correctly, it was pretty witty. This one is about a English gentleman who goes on a European tour when he comes of age with his best friend, who is his lover, and his sister, and they end up getting in all kinds of trouble. And there's lots of themes on gay and race, and it's a wild, fun time. Yeah, it's got serious topics, a lot of topics on abuse and self-medication. We've got drunkenness, and there's a lot of bad habits going on in this book, but it's just fun and definitely has that wit going for it. So that was the Grishaverse book tag. Thanks to Rebbeca Books for doing this tag, and I'm digging it up 2 years later to do it again, just for the resurgence of the TV show. I thought it'd be fun to do a Shadow and Bone themed tag, and I'm pretty sure I've never done a Shadow and Bone or Six of Crows tag. I don't remember. I don't think I have. So thank you so much for watching and bearing with me during my job switch and everything. I'm gonna get the videos out. I'm doing this. I think I'm gonna start posting on Thursdays instead of Wednesdays, because I tend to have Tuesday and Wednesday off, so it gives me like an extra day to make sure that video does come out on the day that I decide it will. I think I'm gonna post this video on the Thursday instead of the Wednesday. Even though I've got plenty of time at the beginning of this week, I'm gonna start making that my schedule. For my regular upload day is now going to be Thursday from now on. Thank you for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not. It'd be nice to see those numbers creep up. They've been a bit stagnant for a while, so it'd be nice to see. And comment below any answers to the questions that you want to tell me, or what did you think of the Shadow and Bone TV show? What did you think of the Grishaverse books? What's your favourite? Let me know any of those, whatever you want to talk about down in the comments. I will happily have a chat with you guys. It's my favourite part of this whole gig. That's why I'm still putting in all the effort to do this, because community. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.